I joined a new gym because a man cannot be forever jumping on his motorbike and heading for the hills like a disgraced cowboy every time his soul gets bored. There are only so many roads out of Bacolod, and after a while the hills begin to look back at you as if to say, here he comes now, the poor Aegis, fleeing himself at 30 kilometres an hour. The old gym had begun to annoy me in a manner that was out of all proportion to its crimes. It was not a bad gym. It had dumbbells, benches, mirrors, men grunting at machinery and all the usual instruments of self-improvement and secret vanity. But it also had coaches. Too many coaches. It seemed to me that there were more coaches than members, and every member appeared to have his own private advisor, handler, confessor, priest, and agricultural inspector. A man could not lift a dumbbell without 3 coaches looking on as if a national bridge were being constructed. "How was your day, sir?" This was the sentence that finished me. At first I answered like a decent citizen, "Grand." Then after a few weeks I answered like a man under police questioning, "Fine." Then finally I began to feel an internal violence every time the phrase appeared. "How was your day, sir?" They would say brightly, kindly, horribly. They meant no harm. That was the worst part. It is much easier to hate a man who is trying to rob you than a man who only knows how your day is. So I left and joined the new gym. It is bigger, quieter, more like a warehouse that has repented its industrial sins and turned itself toward the body. There is air in it. There is space. There are fewer members. A man squats in peace without feeling he has been entered into a customer satisfaction survey. Nearby there is a graveyard where my son's grandfather is buried. After weights I run there. This sounds morbid, but only to people who have not tried it. On my first day running through the graveyard, I passed a freshly dug grave, and the men were still there with shovels, turning the earth as casually as if they were preparing a vegetable patch. I expected to feel the creeps. Instead, I felt grateful. Imagine that. A man sees a hole in the ground waiting for some poor customer and decides that life is not so bad after all. My lungs were working, my legs were moving, the sky was above me, and no man had yet measured me for a wooden box. This, I felt, was progress. Bacolod, meanwhile, remains Bacolod. It has not become Paris or Rome or a Himalayan monastery despite several private requests I have made to the universe. The weather is often good, the sky is generous. There are chicken barbecue restaurants everywhere, which should make it easy enough for a man to eat properly if he is not a fool, a glutton or a philosopher of dessert. I still enjoy driving around the city on my NMAX. There is a freedom in it. The handlebars, the speedometer, the little view of traffic ahead, the tricycles, the jeepneys, the heat coming up from the road, the smell of grilled chicken, petrol, dust and impatience. It is not exactly enlightenment, but it is close enough on a Tuesday afternoon. I've grown used to the teenage heckling me as I drive by. The girls in their uniforms call out, "Hey Daddy," and the boys shout, "Hey Joe," as if I am either everyone's father or the mayor or a foreign fool. I laugh at it now most days. Sometimes for a second it makes me feel lonely and different, like a strange exhibit passing through the city on 2 wheels. A white Irish man on a black scooter, watched and named by children who know nothing about him except that he is visible. But the feeling passes. That is the important part. Once I might have carried it home and fed it. Now I let it rise and vanish like bad weather, like a craving, like a message I do not need to answer. My social life, such as it is, mostly revolves around AA meetings. That is the official phrase, social life. A very grand term for sitting in a room with tired men, coffee, plastic chairs and a book that has survived more human collapses than most religions. The meetings are beginning to annoy me. This is dangerous to admit because people in recovery often treat annoyance like treason. But there it is. Sometimes those meetings are the only place where I have English conversations face to face. If I think about that too much, I become anxious. So I try not to think about it too much. The mind is a dangerous district, and I should not go walking there alone in the dark. Some days I resent the old-timers and the comfort they get from the big book. They hold it like it was lowered from the crowds by a committee of angels with tobacco stains. At the Monday stepwork meeting, I refused to read it line by line. I will not do it. I did not survive alcohol, drugs, lust and loneliness, and the emotional weather of the Philippines to spend my Monday night dragging my finger across a sentence like a schoolboy learning about farm animals. But I do discuss the meaning. I am not a complete savage. The book often relates to the cravings I am having, and that annoys me too, because I prefer my resentments. I prefer them to be inaccurate. Sometimes I am happy with my recovery, other times I am sick to death of it. I suppose many people feel the same. Recovery is like chicken barbecue. Eat the chicken, spit out the bones. A man who tries to eat the bones will blame the chicken. There are still the short-time hotels. I drive past them. The same signs, the same entrances, the same promise of temporary escape at a price written clearly on the wall. 3 hours, 300 pesos. There was a time when those signs pulled at me like spirits behind the counter in 7-Eleven during early alcohol sobriety. Bottles lined up like little glass demons saying, "Come here to me, you old friend. We remember you." I used to visit those hotels with some of the pretty girls of Bacolod City. I used to pretend it was not transactional. This required a large amount of idiocy and some acting ability. The girls would sometimes tell me they loved me, and I would half believe it or pretend to, because the lie was warmer than the truth. Then more money would be needed naturally. Love in those circumstances had a very precise exchange rate. I felt manipulated, yes, but that was not the full truth. I was also manipulating myself. That is the bit a man does not like to write down. It was difficult to stop, very difficult. Cravings do not leave because you have made a speech of yourself. They linger. They wait outside the hotel with their hands in their pockets. Now I see an old foreigner walking into one of those places with a young woman on his arm, and he looks happy. And she looks at the wallet or the phone or the promise of money, and I smile because that is not me anymore. Not today. I know the performance. I know the loneliness after it. It erodes your sense of self until you are left bewildered, sitting on the bed wondering how you paid to feel even more alone. In the church I sit at the back. There is a baptism at the front. 10 people gathered around a baby who is about to be introduced to God. Water, family photographs, and the long confusion of being alive. The priest pours the water. The baby screams like a small prophet objecting to doctrine. I have decided to call my higher power No God. This may scandalize certain officials in the spiritual department, but it is the most honest name I have. I cannot seem to find a real higher power, not in the clean way or other people speak of. So, No God is where I am. Step 2 and Step 3 under construction, no certificate issued. I'm trying to hand things over, but I have a problem surrendering when I feel stronger now, more in control. In a way, I have stormed the cockpit. I have become the pilot. The terrorists who tried to take the plane are unconscious and tied up in first class. This is not surrender. This is counterattack with spiritual language attached. Still, I pray to know God. I contemplate Jesus on the wall, nailed to history, suffering under the old management of the world. I wonder what he would have said about AI. Would he have told people to use it the way I do? Would he have warned them not to worship it? Would he have said, "Render unto the algorithm what is algorithmic, but keep your soul out of the machine, you gobshites"? I use AI sometimes and it makes me feel capable, in control, able to learn too much too quickly. A small God in my hand, a library that answers back, a mirror that flatters and corrects. Perhaps Jesus would wink at that. Perhaps he would turn over the tables. The baby screams again, the priest smiles, the family leans in. I thank no God. Then, because I am Irish and cannot leave well enough alone, I wink at Jesus.